welcome. My name is Tara Rodriguez, and if you're new here and enjoy a good true crime story or all things makeup, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will be sharing with you a new true crime story featuring some of the world's most notorious yet beautiful women of our time. And as I'm getting ready for the day. So please stick around as we unravel the story behind Darlene Gentry, a Texas beauty queen with big dreams, but even bigger secrets. So let's dive into this episode of Beautifully Tainted Tuesdays. I'm back. So thank you for joining me today for this Beautifully Tainted Tuesday, where we're going to be talking about Darlene Gentry on top of the crazy true crime story I got for you today. I also have, of course, our sponsored makeup product, which is going to be the Mettalusso Love and Luxury line. So not only do they totally love all of their customers, me being one personally, and I know they show it to me all the time, but you are also going to feel luxurious. So definitely, if you have any questions about any of the makeup products that I'm going to be putting on today, go ahead and leave me a comment. Otherwise, just go ahead and follow the links in the description. I will completely try to answer any of your questions. Alright, so let's get to this awesome murder mystery about Darlene Gentry and everything she has going on, the Texan beauty. Wow. Yeah, so it was November 9th in 2005, and at 6:15 a.m. Darlene Gentry called 911. So she and reported that she was waking up to find her husband's gun cabinet was completely open. She didn't know why this was. She's like, what's going on? You know, why is the gun cabinet open? So she, and it was empty. There was nothing in it. No guns, nothing was in there. So she also noticed that the back door was completely wide open. So gun cabinet's empty, back door is wide open. She doesn't know what's going on. So she goes and she runs into the room and finds that her husband Keith is lying on the bed in a pool of blood, and he's in what she says, quote, he's making a god-awful sound. There's pink foam coming out of his mouth. So, but side note, this is what she's telling the operator, right? So as she's telling the operator this, the problem is that people are even having with Darlene is that she didn't mention any of this until after 7 minutes into the phone call. So 7 minutes in is when she decides to say, hey, also, not only is the gun cabinet completely emptied out and, you know, the back door's open, and she's talking about all of that repetitively in the 911 call. She's also almost in a way where people described it as she was trying to justify things. So she's overly explaining at this time. So, but that wasn't quite what they were looking at yet. So this is just the operator call. But they noticed that, you know, it took 7 minutes for her to say a word about her husband. You know, lying in a pool of blood. That's 7 minutes. If you think about it, that an ambulance could have already been coming. An ambulance could have been on their way. Someone could have been coming to help him, but she didn't even mention him for 7 minutes. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that, because that was kind of a big deal in this case. They were completely confused, you know, law enforcement was completely confused by this. So the officers obviously raced to the scene, and they found 31-year-old Keith Gentry, her husband, suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. So they find him there, you know, and they're trying to obviously piece together exactly what's going on, you know, what's happening here. And he's clinging to life. Keith is clinging to life at this point. They know that he's severely injured. They know that he's not okay, but he's not dead yet. There's nothing, you know, he's still alive. So he was rushed to the hospital. They got him to a point where
they were able to actually rush him to the hospital and put him on life support. But before that happened, they actually, when the officers were inside, obviously trying to figure out what's going on, one of the officers actually said, and it was on tape, that he didn't feel what was happening. It didn't feel right to him. Something did not feel right to him. He just was not okay with this, and he was already suspecting that she had something, that Darlene had something to do with this. He just was not, something told him like, hey, something's not right here. Something's not right here, Why did it take her why is she not asking about her husband? I guess she did not ask about her husband at all, which I'm not sure. I've never been in that situation, but if you were that shooken, I would still think you'd be asking about the person you care about and love. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm not sure. But that brings me actually to a quick point. Another awesome thing about the Mettalusso product line, and something that I am huge on, is mental health awareness. They are huge when it comes to mental health and wellness, and making sure that you feel good not only on the outside but on the inside as well. They have an amazing blog. They have great resources. So that's another reason why I'm a huge fan of the Mettalusso line. And it also shows a lot of these stories that are told, a lot of the true crimes. It just kind of almost makes you paint a picture of someone that's just not mentally well. I mean, otherwise, why would they be doing the things that they're doing? So I just wanted to kind of also highlight that obviously something, you can be beautiful, you can be everything, but that doesn't mean your mental state is okay. So with that going on, and the amount of time that it took, like I said, officers were already suspicious. They were like, what? No, something's not right here. Like, what's going on here? So as things are kind of happening, and obviously, the small tight-knit community that they belonged to, which was actually Robinson, Texas, was, understandably completely shaken and couldn't understand who would have wanted, the loyal and loving father that he was known to be, that Keith was known to be, of 3 kids dead. Who would want that? So they weren't quite understanding, who around here would want that. Everyone loved him. He was a good dad. He's known as being a good dad. He was a great provider, from what people said in his family and outside of his family, friends, family, all that said. He's a great dad. We don't get it. We don't understand this. So it's, as it turned out, I guess, the person who had the answers they sought, was Keith's very own wife. And that's kind of the ironic thing here. When they say that term, like sleeping with the enemy, I guess this would fit that bill completely, because, with beautiful blonde hair and a big bright smile, and Darlene was known for being a big personality. She was a beauty queen when she was younger. She loved to be the center of attention. She loved it. She loved, her outgoing lifestyle. She had that outgoing personality. She had that smile on her face. She was walking around like, no one's gonna dull my shine. It's not gonna happen. So, that's what she was known to be. And, she often was known for just being that she was known for being that beauty queen like person. So after high school, the former prom queen and beauty queen attended Texas State technical college. So that's actually where she met Keith. That's where she met her husband. So after only 8 months of knowing each other and dating, she says that she knew that Keith was the one she wanted to be with, and he was the one for her. So even though they were only together for 8 months, he wasn't quite sure. He always, I guess, was kind of apprehensive and told family members that. So he wasn't quite sure. But because she was more serious than he was, he decided, you know what, probably not gonna work. You know, I'm not there. I'm not on that level yet. So it's just not what I'm doing right now. So I'm not sure how we can make this work. So they actually broke up. And Darlene moved away to Dallas. She left the small town of Robinson, and she left to Dallas for a fresh start. She didn't want to be in that same town. It was too hard, she said, being around his family and everyone that she really cared about, and began, and started to care about it. Even though it was only 8 months, she really built these bonds with these people. So after a year goes by, and one of her family members actually stated that she got her car was stolen. So after this happens, she decides, okay, I'm going back. I'm going back. Well, she ends up seeing Keith at one night while they're out dancing. While she's out dancing, she sees Keith. They reconnect. So Keith says he's ready to settle down now. So she's like, perfect. That's what I've been waiting for. So they ended up marrying in 1999. So they ended up marrying. Things were going good. They moved next door to Keith's parents back in Robinson, Texas. And they had 3 beautiful boys. Darlene became a nurse. She actually realized that what she thought she wanted to do was not exactly what she wanted. She actually wanted to be a nurse. So she pursued that career. And then Keith went on to be an electrical engineer. So things from the outside looking in look pretty good. I mean, they're kind of set up. So it's, this whole thing was pretty crazy. So, like I said, on the outside looking in, the Gentrys look like that all-American family. We did it. We ended up being able to come together. We have great friends. We have great family. We got great kids. You have a decent job. I have a decent job. But, as they kind of explain, friends of the Gentrys, that Darlene had a little bit of an out-of-control spending habit. She was spending a lot more than what they were bringing in. So at some point, Keith actually decides, hey, you know what? I know I'm traveling, because he was gone 4 days a week. He ends up taking a job that would land him closer to home, actually at home. So he could be with the kids, because between working all the time, like Darlene was, they never seen each other. Nobody ever seen the kids. They were at babysitters at, his parents' house. And they were, it just turned into a lower paying job is what he took. So her spending got out of control. Completely out of control. The girl was just blowing money everywhere, I guess. So, apart from, the out of control spending habits, there was consistent fighting now. Because what comes with money issues? Fighting, right? So, they didn't claim to have the perfect marriage, but they were still determined to make it work. They still wanted this to work. So, Darlene didn't feel, the same way. And she showed those feelings. She wasn't hiding them, and she wasn't really, she was more on she knew, and Keith had explained to friends and family that, he was not ever going to leave her. He told his family, look, I know she's doing all these things. I'm getting calls at work from bill collectors and people that are just upset because we're not paying these bills, but I'm not going to leave her over it. So Darlene knew that he wasn't going to leave her. He had no intentions on doing so, so she didn't like that, obviously. So, as things kind of escalated and got worse, after 6 years of marriage and everything, they decided to just kind of like do them, they're gonna do them. So they just, they still lived together and everything, but the relationship was completely strained in every way. So, and that obviously landed in a very, very bad place. But Darlene told officers that she had gone out with friends the night before, okay? So the night before Keith was discovered with, obviously in a not so great situation, she had explained that the night before she went out with friends. So she's kind of letting them know what happened. And when she returned home, that the night that she actually came home at around 8:30, you know, at night, and Keith confronted her about all these credit card bills. He's like, look, like, what's going on? Where are you spending this money? What's happening? Why do I got people calling me from everywhere wanting money? And what are you doing? What are you doing? He's not understanding, you know. So he's asking her flat out, like, where is it? Like, where are the cards? Whatever. So Darlene says she went for a drive to cool down. She wanted to chill out. So she, you know, went cruising, whatever. And she returned, and she says that the couple they made up. You know, they made up. They kissed and made up, and it was good. They went to sleep in their room. And she actually went and slept. The story is she went and slept in her boys' room because her boys weren't feeling that good. So that's what she says ended up happening. Now, I'm just saying, if you come home at 8:30, right? You go through this long talk, you make up with your husband, and it gets to the point where now you're going and sleeping in your boys' room. You know what time it is already. Like, does that time not match up from that time to like the 6:15 time? I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know how fast you can, you know, I don't know how fast you can make up, but I'm just saying, it's already a little suspect to me. Okay? My opinion, just saying. So when Darlene said she awoke to find the back door wide open and Keith's gun cabinet completely cleared out, like that was gone, you know, she walked into their bedroom, and that's when she found him face down with, you know, the pink foam she described coming out of his mouth, and out of his head, and it was blood pouring out of his head. But again, it took 7 minutes on that call for her to mention any of this. She wanted to talk about everything else before she mentioned this. So that's where, again, the officer comes in and says, hey, no, boo-boo. Something ain't right. I'm not feeling this. And he's even, like I said, there's tape of him saying, something ain't right. I'm not feeling this. Something's not right. I think she did it. And this was within, you know, hours of being there. It's not like it took that long for them to already kind of come to that conclusion. Here's the thing. Is that fair? What do you think? I want you to comment on this. Do you think that that's fair to come up with before you actually get down to the nitty-gritty of things? You're only there for maybe an hour or two, and you're already making this assumption as a police officer. I just want to know your thoughts. If you think that that's a fair thing to do. Just curious. So, now, Darlene was, you know, was still talking about this burglar that had broken into what she thought was a burglar that broke into their house, right? So she's still on this, and that, you know, Keith's firearms and that must have been the person that shot him, you know, in the head. But there were no signs of forced entry, okay? Again, things aren't kind of adding up. And the gun case was glass, and it had to be accessed with a key. But there's no broken glass. Officers didn't see any broken glass anywhere. So again, things are kind of not really, you know, adding up. And then officers didn't have to look far for all of Keith's firearms that were missing. You know, oddly enough, they had all been neatly stacked in the front yard. So they found them. They're in the front yard. Like, I can't even. Now, all of them were there except for one, which was a .22 caliber revolver. That's the only one that's missing. Everything else is accounted for. So this burglar must have broke in, happened to find a unlocked with kids in the house gun cabinet that, you know, was made of, like I said, glass door on it. And it was just such his luck. He was able to leave without anybody seeing him. he neatly, he had a second thought. He was, double thinking what he was doing. He's like, maybe I don't want to do this crime at this time. So he neatly, for them, decided to stack the guns side by side, neatly together, except for one. Went back in the house, shot him. No one heard a thing. And just, moseyed off into the woods and said, well, I left their guns. Like, come on. Like, so the officers interview with Darlene for 1 hour. That's what it was an interview that was 1 hour at the police station. And she never once asked about her husband. She never once said, what's his condition? Where's my husband? How's he doing? Is he alive? Is he good? Can I see him? Nothing. So she had just discovered her husband he was on the edge of death, right? So he's clinging to life at this point. He's holding on. They were able to stabilize him enough with the gunshot wound to his head, mind you, to move him to the hospital, right? So she knows this. She knows, my husband clinging to life. But yet, there were no tears, the officer said. No, nothing. There was a very dull monotone, but when it came to talking about her, they said she was totally all in it. Personality was there, there was no regard for her husband's life. No questions being asked. No frantic, is he okay? Now, one thing to think about. As I mentioned earlier, what did Darlene go to school for or become? Darlene was a registered nurse. Let's not forget that. She had not even attempted to administer first aid to her dying husband. She claimed to have been in such a state of shock that she just couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. But she wasted no time in signing his life away. It was nothing, as if he was never around. So it is a little hard, I'm not gonna lie, but because Darlene was the one who actually took him off of life support. That's the kind of hard part, I think, for people to process. Where was her mindset at that time? She didn't really ask about him. She didn't have much to say about it, but she was able to take his life away without much of a care, or at least seem that way. So, and that was shortly after, he was at the hospital. So the officers kept searching as this is all kind of going on, and they searched the Gentry home for evidence, and they didn't even have to look far, in the kitchen garbage can, I guess, they found a pair of latex gloves. So, along with the casing of a .22 caliber bullet. Now again, I really don't know if, I've ever heard of in history a robber that was that clean and cared that much and acted as if they were backing out of this enough to neatly stack guns, wear gloves, they didn't even have to break into nothing. It's all, I get why there was some apprehension. And again, I have no here nor there on any of it, totally unbiased. But both of them were sent out for their findings. Both of them were sent out for forensic testing. Right? They wanted to know what's going on with this. Like, why, are these things here? So the officers learned that they were right about, right to be suspicious of Darlene all along. Why is that? Because the gun residue containing both her and Keith's, right? Only her and her husband's DNA was found on the gloves and the casing. Ooh, right? So, 19 days after her husband's murder, Darlene was arrested and hauled off to jail 19 days after. And she would be there. She ended up getting sentenced to 60 years. So that's all it took. They knew, like, hey, no, we got you now. Now we know for sure. It's not just a possibility or maybe a maybe. Like, we know what's up. So Keith's parents had always loved Darlene, and they believed there was no way she could have done this, right? They did not believe that. They were like, we really truly care about this girl. Like, what are you talking about? So even his parents she's still advocating, for them. So they went as far as to, they believed her so much that they went as far as to graciously pay Darlene's $50,000 bond. And after only a few hours in jail, she was actually a free woman again. So this was actually, I apologize, this was before she was actually sentenced. So Darlene's first instinct was to call her longtime friend, Robert Pavelka. And she inquired whether he had any land. He wanted to know if he had any land that she could buy. A fresh start for her and her boys, right? And he says, actually, yeah, I do. And, it comes with a pond. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, my kids would love that. Their dad would have loved for them to be around fishing. Yes, he was a big fisherman. So, because she's claiming she can no longer live, in that home. She's a widow now, basically, and she just doesn't want her kids to be in there. And so, yes, Robert says, yeah, and it comes with a pond even. Hey, it has a little pond with it, and it'd be great. Her late husband, he loved to take the boys fishing, so it'd be a great, reminder of that, but not have to live in that home with those, memories. So Darlene asked if she actually, oddly enough, even though she seemed like that was, a great idea, she loved the idea, and she was ecstatic about it, and she really seemed to be happy about this pond, for her boys. However, a few weeks later, she has this change of heart, right? And she asks if she still would get the home if he could have the pond filled in. She wanted the home, not the pond. Okay? So she's saying, hey, you know what? Thought about it. I don't need no stinking pond. Like, my boys don't need all that. So Darlene, asked Robert if he could have the pond filled in. That's all he wanted was she wanted the pond filled in. And Robert, for some reason, was not feeling that. So there's a lot of people not feeling things with Darlene exactly. And he's like, why would you say you want a pond? I mean, who don't want a friggin' pond? I mean, I would love a pond. Put a couple koi fish in there. I'm happy. Let me watch them swim. I don't even care. But to be that happy about it and then just pull it away. What does that sound like? What she do before? Just saying. So he automatically, without hesitation, thinks that that's suspicious. Something's up. Why'd you want the pond? Now you don't want the pond, and it was a whole 2 weeks later. Normally when you make a decision like that, whether you want something or not. You're not going to be that happy and then not, So, that was the reason she was saying she wanted this property. That's why she wanted it. So he was very, very, leery of her. He wasn't quite sure what was up. Now, he knew everything that obviously happened before. I mean, everyone in this community knew what happened. There was no mouths being shut. They knew. So he calls a friend, at the county sheriff's office, right? And soon enough, they have a dive team out there, 2 seconds flat. They're like, no, something ain't right. Something ain't right. So they search the pond. This is a whole like dun 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 moment, because what do they find? I'm gonna tell you. They find the missing .22 caliber revolver, gifted to, now check this out, this is sad, this is actually real sad. The weapon that took his life was a gift from his father. Keith's father gifted this .22 caliber. They were hunters, they were fishermen, they did all those things. It was Texas, that's just what they did. He got shot by a gun that was gifted from his father. That's deep. That's really deep, you know. So Robert, now working, you know, as an agent basically for the state, called Darlene and told her he would gladly have the pond filled. She was interested in buying the land. She was. So, of course, in order for the pond to be filled, it had to be drained first. This is what he tells her. Now, he tells her this, and Darlene's, I guess, demeanor, she would like to be there when the pond was drained. What? What? Why? Oh my God. Why would you need to be there when a pond is drained? You know, like, that's weird. Yeah, I would think that's weird. So Darlene, you know, has this request. Her only request is she wants to solidify officers' suspicions. Which is a weird thing to say, because she has no idea the dive teams were already in there. You know, like, swimming. They found everything, sis. Like, calm down, they found it. But she doesn't know that. She does not know that. So, what she also does not know is that after Robert told Darlene that the pond would actually have to be, you know, drained, is what he told her. That it would be drained actually 2 days after he had talked to her, right? He says it'll be 2 days. So they actually had 2 officers hiding in the bushes, right? So there's 2 officers hiding in the bushes across from the pond with a camera. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited. They knew something was going to happen. They knew something wasn't right with this pond. They knew that they just knew. They knew something was not right. They all felt it, obviously. So, as they're doing this sting mission, sure enough, who comes wandering over? Little Miss Darlene herself. You know, whether she's doing the runway strut, I don't know. But she moseyed on over to that pond. Why? For what? She walks straight into the pond. She begins poking around. She's literally like with a stick poking around in the exact spot that she does not know yet that the gun was found by the dive team already. So, I mean, you caught red-handed, brown-handed, whatever the heck, you're caught, you're done, you're caught. So, prosecutors argued that Darlene killed Keith to fund her new shopping habit, okay? The bills were beginning to pile up, and when Keith confronted her, now this is their suspicion, and went to his wife and said, hey, look, you're spending too much money. Cut it, like, chill. That she just went crazy. You know, she lost it. She lost her mind. And then she decided he's worth more dead than alive. Why? Because he had a $750,000 life insurance policy. And that was the answer to all of her problems. No more bill collectors calling. No more people harassing her, him, anybody, right? So, that's all to her. That's all she had left. That's all she could do. Now, this again was the officer's, assumption. So they go ahead and, Darlene still said, I'm innocent. Look, she insisted that she was searching the pond. This is what she says. Now, again, this is in a totally different area, so I don't really understand. I don't understand this, but I don't have to, right? So she said she was searching the pond for the murderer weapon because she heard a rumor. Rumors, right? We all listen to them. That someone had been thrown in there by the real killer, right? So something was thrown in there by the real killer. She heard this rumor, so she couldn't let it go. So she claimed she feared the police would have used it against her. So she thought she was going to be framed. So she's thinking she's going to be framed. She's kind of going like, I don't know what else to do. What do I do? Let's just throw it up in the pond and we'll see what happens from there. I'm going to be scraping this pond so I can find this gun so the police don't frame me when, unknowingly, unbeknownst to her, they already had found it. They had no reason to frame anybody in the exact same spot that she went back to look for it in. What do you say? Right? So again, she doesn't know this at the time. So she actually now fast forward to when now they're actually in court and they're actually proceedings are happening. Darlene decides to file a motion to have the video of her rummaging through a pond for no good God reason other than a rumor in the exact same spot that the dive team had found, the gun, the actual weapon. She asked for that video to be withheld from the trial, but of course it was denied. She sat in silence as jurors watched her basically seal her fate. They knew, they knew. There's nothing else we can do for you, right? There's nothing we can do. Like, look at what's going on here. Do you understand what's happening? We have all this, they basically have, if you think about it, all this evidence, right? And they are at the point of just saying, we have nothing else to go off of. So, after the trial, she gets sentenced to 60 years in prison for the murder of Keith, her husband. Her husband, who she had no remorse for when he was dying, from what police say, had no real care in the world for what was happening to him while he's being drug away by an ambulance, not knowing whether he was going to live or die. Had no real care in the world as to what was going to go on with him afterwards, but had no problem when he was on life support pulling the plug. So I'm sure for a lot of jurors, they had a hard time really believing that she ever cared about him. Put yourself in that situation. Think about it for a minute. How would you feel as a juror hearing this story, hearing about how her kids were in the house? That's tough. That's got to be tough for anyone to hear. So also hearing that she's going back to ponds because of rumors, there's now a life insurance policy that they know about. All these things are kind of coming to light, right? So they're just like, not much more we can do for you. So she gets 60 years in prison. Now, I will say, and I want you guys to know, that Darlene is still fighting this. As of last year, at least that's the information that I found, and of course you guys can correct me on this if there's any new updates, or if I see any, I'll definitely post them. But the last thing I seen was she was actually filing to be able to represent herself. She wanted to basically come forward and say, hey, she thinks she has evidence that will prove through DNA that she is not guilty. So I do want to say that I believe the first one she went for was denied, but she's actually trying to get an appeal to represent herself, and she says that she has sufficient evidence. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think? Do you think that, this is a desperate last attempt? Do you think that she's just narcissistic and wants to now believe her own lies and stories? Or do you believe that she was really never ever given a fair shot? Do you think police did go in there and say, hey, we think she did it, that's it? Like, do you think that they really gave her the proper interrogation time after only an hour? Now, you hear about other cases, I will say, they're in there for days, like literally days sometimes. You hear about this. It's nothing new, hours and hours and hours of interrogations, hours. And they barely get anything, or sometimes they'll get just enough, just enough to where they are able to, prosecute someone. Maybe they say something wrong because they're tired, they just don't even know anymore. But this was 1 hour, and she never confessed to anything, right? So they used this tape, and that was kind of the smoking gun in this, right? Like, that was the thing that kind of glued everything together to the police. So, do you think it was fair? Do you think that she was given a fair shot? Do you think that she was given a fair trial? Do you think that they should have taken more time? Is there anything you think? I'm curious. I'm kind of curious to see how people would feel about that. This is a girl that's saying she's never admitted to doing anything, by the way. She's never turned or changed her story. She's never said, oh, he was a wife beater, or hey, anything like that. So she's still stuck on this whole, on the robber scenario. So again, do you think that was given a fair shot? What do you really think? Because I'm very curious to know how people would feel on this. And again, it's not to be, I'm not saying I lean one way or the other. I'm just the messenger. I'm just telling the story, just sharing it. Just, that's all that is. I don't really lean one way or another. Some things, of course, are going to look a little funny. Some things are going to be like, I don't know. Was she? If you were in that situation, would you feel like you, got your justice too? Do you feel like you would freak out about your husband? Would you have said something? Would you have asked if he was okay? Or do you think that you'd be so in the moment of freaking out and knowing? Because she said she knew in one of the interviews, she openly said she knows that they go for the wife or the spouse first. So that's the first thing on her mind. And she's a big personality. I'm a big personality. So I kind of get, I do get that, we over talk. I'm probably doing it now. So, but, so I do get that part of it. The evidence, I'll even admit, doesn't really make sense. But, again, does that still show a fairness when it comes down to the justice of things? So, I really do. I want to hear what you guys think. I'm very curious to see how many of you feel like, hey, you know what? She did the crime. She needs to do the time. Or are you guys like, hey, you know what? No, she wasn't getting a fair shot. Like, they were kind of judging her right away. Maybe because of the way she looked. Maybe because of, we know all the things that go on these days. So, I'm just curious. Let me know. See what's up. Let's talk about it. Definitely. But that is definitely still an open book. So we will, like I said, if I get any new updates on it or anything that comes out or anything that's just like, whoa, this was that case we were talking about, I will most certainly let you guys know about that. Hopefully justice gets served any which way you look at it. And hopefully, you know, the people that need to do the time and rightfully need to, that's exactly what happens. You know, I do believe in that. You do a crime, and that's true. You're gonna do the time. I mean, no matter how it looks. So at the end of the day, we can only hope that that happens. But you know, we'll stay up with it, and we'll see what happens with it. But in the meantime, I just wanted to let you guys know that everything, like I said, I have on today is either from Mettalusso. A majority of it. The eyeshadow, I will say, is from Urban Decay. I love their eyeshadows. I'm going to be getting some Mettalusso eyeshadows. So I will go ahead and feature those on my next video, hopefully, or maybe the one after that. But, like I said, totally back that company. Christine, she's amazing. You go, girl. Love ya for everything you've done. So yeah, she's an amazing owner. She's a small business owner, which is fabulous. It's one thing I could say, you know, in this journey, is that small business owners, you rock. I've never had so much personable, but just everything's personalized. Everything, like I got handwritten letters, like from small businesses. It's crazy, the amount of effort they'll put into it. So I always say, you know, shop small business. You're gonna get what you pay for. And honestly, you're paying for greatness with Mettalusso. I mean, I've never had my skin feel so great. Like, I wouldn't even be afraid. And I know this is like, you know, anybody that wears makeup, you'd be like, girl, you're crazy. You are crazy. There ain't no way. I don't need me looking like I'm 80 years old when I'm only 40. No, I wouldn't even be afraid to not take, I'm gonna say it, to not take my makeup off at night. Like, that's how much I don't even feel her products on me, to where I could totally forget, or, you know, not do it, and I feel like I don't feel like I'd have these clogged, crazy, you know, pimples coming up my face or anything nuts, honestly. And I'm not even just saying that. Like, I get nothing for saying that. So, you know, it's a great line. So definitely check that out. Like I said, that'll be in the description. And I just did a very more of a, not so much beauty queen-esque look, but a little toned down one, right? So, like I said, if you guys like the video, please don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be bringing them to you at least a couple times, or a few times a week. So I'm going to try to be on that. So until next time, you guys, I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like I said, keep the conversation going. I want to know what you think. I want to know. I'm kind of nosy like that. I need to know what you think too. So make sure you chime in if you have any thoughts about it, or any corrections. I have no problem with that. These were our sources, obviously. I love to read the true crime, so that's what it is. So I'm not claiming to know anything in certainty. I only know facts that were given. So if you want to add to it, be my guest. Let's do it. So, like I said, this will conclude our first episode. We got through it, of the beautifully tainted Tuesday. So, up next, we're going to be talking about the giggling grandma. I said that. The giggling grandma. My grandma laughs, but I don't think it's like that. So I'm just saying. So it'll be the Nanny Doss. That's her name, Nanny Doss. She's a little bit of something else. So she's looking for something she could not find, and who was ever in her way, well, that's what it was. So that'll be our next video. Alright guys, so until then, have a beautiful and blessed rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Alright, bye guys.